By early 1944, RAF Bomber Command was bleeding to death. Night after night, hundreds of Lancaster and Halifax bombers would fly into the dark heart of Germany. And night after night, dozens would not return. They were being systematically annihilated. The official reports from returning crews were filled with confusion and terror. They saw their comrades simply explode. No warning, no tracer fire. Just a sudden, violent flash in the darkness, and another crew of 7 was gone. Allied High Command was baffled. Their primary countermeasure, a revolutionary technology codenamed Window, had been designed to perfectly blind German radar. Window, known today as chaff, was simple. Bundles of aluminum strips dropped from the bombers. To the old German radar systems, it created a snowstorm of false signals, hiding the bombers completely. But it wasn't working. The losses were not decreasing. They were getting worse. The Allies had staked the entire air war on a technological defense that was, inexplicably, failing. They didn't know that deep within the Luftwaffe, German engineers had already rendered Window obsolete. They had deployed a new generation of airborne radar, the Fuji 220 Liechtenstein SN2, which operated on a frequency Window couldn't touch. This was the fatal flaw. The Allies were fighting an enemy they could not see, using a shield that was hopelessly broken. And the price of this ignorance was being paid in human lives. The human cost was catastrophic. Imagine being a 20-year-old tail gunner, suspended in a Perspex bubble at 20,000 feet. Your only job is to scan the total blackness for a killer you have been told is invisible. Suddenly, the bomber in front of you vanishes in a ball of fire. Still, you see nothing. This was the reality for thousands of airmen stalked by Luftwaffe night ghosts. These ghosts were specialized night fighters, Ju 88s and Messerschmitt 100s and 10s. They were equipped with the SN2 radar and a terrifying weapon called Schräge Musik, upward-firing cannons. The German pilot would slide, unseen, beneath the Lancaster. He would aim through a simple reflector sight, line up the bomber's wing, and pull the trigger. The bomber's fuel tanks would ignite, and the job was done. The German crew never even saw their victim's face. The Allied crew never even knew they were under attack. Official reports, desperate for answers, blamed anything but the truth. They called it flak, mid-air collisions, pilot error. But the men on the ground, the intelligence officers analyzing the wreckage, knew something was terribly wrong. They had no wreckage of the new radar, no technical data, no counter. The entire Allied bombing campaign, the key to opening a second front and ending the war, was on the verge of total failure. They needed a breakthrough. They needed the weapon itself delivered into their hands. And on a foggy night in July 1944, they would get it. From a hopelessly lost German radar operator named Werner Matzke, the solution came not from an engineer, it came from the enemy himself. The date was July 13, 1944. At a Luftwaffe base, a brand new Junkers Ju 88 G1 night fighter was preparing for a simple ferry flight. On board was a crew of 3, including its radar operator, Obergefreiter Werner Matzke. He was not a combat ace, he was not a strategist. He was, by all accounts, an ordinary serviceman who was about to make the single most catastrophic navigational error of the entire air war.
We should be there by now.
Their mission was simple: fly to another German base at Dubendorf. But as night fell, they were consumed by bad weather, thick clouds, and total disorientation. This wasn't just any Ju-88, it was serial number 751013, a G1 variant, factory fresh and packed with Germany's most secret technology. Its feature, the Fuji 220 Liechtenstein SN2 radar. Its advantage? It operated on a 90 megahertz frequency, rendering Allied window chaff completely useless. And it had a second, even more sinister secret, a device codenamed Flensburg, which hunted the very emissions from the Allies' own Monica tail warning radar. The British shield was a German sword. The bomber's own defense was actively guiding the killer to its belly. And on this night, Werner Matzke, hopelessly lost, made a fatal decision. He mistook the lights of an airfield for his German base, and he ordered his pilot to land. This was the turning point. The Ju-88 descended through the fog. The pilot, confident, lined up with the runway lights and made a perfect textbook landing. He taxied the aircraft off the runway. He shut down the powerful engines. And then, the silence. Werner Matzke opened the hatch. But the men who approached the aircraft were not speaking German. They were speaking English. They were soldiers of the Royal Air Force. He had landed not at Dubendorf, but at RAF Woodbridge in England. In a single disastrous moment, the crew realized their mistake. They had just gift-wrapped the Luftwaffe's most precious secret and delivered it, pristine and untouched, directly to the enemy. The surrender was immediate. Within minutes, British intelligence officers were swarming the aircraft, their disbelief turning to elation. They didn't just have a piece of wreckage. They had the entire functioning system. It worked. The keys to the kingdom were now in their hands. The adoption was immediate. This wasn't some underground fix. This was a top priority intelligence coup, and the news flew directly to the top. The Ju-88 was taken to the Royal Aircraft Establishment at Farnborough. The legendary Dr. R.V. Jones, the head of British Air Scientific Intelligence, personally oversaw the reverse engineering. The discoveries were staggering. First, they confirmed the SN2's frequency, the key to finally jamming it. But the second discovery stopped their hearts. They tested the Flensburg device. They switched on a British Monica radar, and the Flensburg receiver lit up instantly, giving a perfect bearing. The technology that RAF crews trusted to warn them of attack was instead a death warrant, a homing beacon screaming, "Here I am," into the night. The order went out in hours. A flash message to all of Bomber Command. All Monica units were to be switched off. Immediately, period. The Whisper network wasn't mechanics. It was commanders, silencing a fleet. And just like that, the night ghosts went blind. The enemy's confusion was total. The proof came from the other side of the North Sea. Luftwaffe night fighter aces, men who had been racking up 5, 7, even 10 kills a night, suddenly found nothing. The sky, which had been full of electronic prey, was suddenly empty. Their reliable Flensburg screens were dark. German combat logs from mid-July 1944 onward are filled with bafflement, noting that the British bombers seem to have vanished from their scopes. Their kill rates didn't just drop, they fell off a cliff. The Schrage music cannons fell silent because their SN2-equipped planes could no longer find a target they couldn't see. And the Allies weren't done. Using the data from Matzke's plane, British scientists developed Mandrel, a new jammer perfectly tuned to the SN2's frequency. Within weeks, The entire German night fighter defense network, the most advanced and lethal air defense system in the world, was rendered deaf, dumb, and blind. The Untold legacy is not one of a hero. It is a legacy of a single catastrophic mistake. Werner Matzke, the disoriented radar operator, was not an unsung hero. He was a prisoner of war. His accidental gift, however, changed the entire strategic balance of the air war in a way no single battle ever could. The data from his Ju-88G1 was the key. The immediate order to shut down all Monica radars saved an untold number of lives, perhaps starting that very night. Within weeks, new Allied countermeasures, born from that aircraft's technology, were deployed. The Luftwaffe's night fighter force never recovered. The crews that had been hunted were now the hunters, and the night ghosts that had terrified Bomber Command were finally just ghosts. Matzke and his crew were forgotten, footnotes in an intelligence report. There was no medal, no recognition, only the profound, silent impact of their failure. It is the ultimate irony of war that the lives of thousands of Allied airmen were not saved by a general's plan or a scientist's breakthrough, but by one enemy pilot's bad navigation on a cloudy night, a simple human error that changed history. It proves that sometimes the most decisive victories are the ones that are handed to you by mistake. The story of Werner Matzke's Ju-88 is a stark reminder. It shows that history is not always written by grand strategies, but often turns on a single moment of pure, dumb luck. It's a story of how a fatal flaw in navigation saved thousands. Our mission is to find these hidden turning points, to give credit not to heroes, but to the truth, no matter how accidental it may be.